Good evening. I'm Brighton Supervisor Bill Maley. I'm pleased to welcome everyone to the July 12th, 2017 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. As always, these meetings are open to the public, and we welcome all of you that are here tonight. But if you're not here, if you're watching us on our cable access channel or our YouTube live stream, we want you all to have access to all the materials that we have. If you're here in the room, back on the back table is our agenda and all supporting materials for the public to review. And if you're watching remotely on YouTube or on cable channel 12, you can find all of the same materials on the town webpage, www.townofbrighton.org, and we welcome that participation. I'm going to ask that we start the meeting with a pledge to the flag. Councilmember Chris Warner, would you lead us, please?
Happy to. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll be starting our open forum in just a minute, but we do have one proclamation tonight. And I'm going to invite Scott Fearing, Executive Director of the Gay Alliance, to join me. Thank you. This week is Pride Week, and the Brighton Town Board has issued this proclamation in order to celebrate Pride Week. Whereas, Brighton has long celebrated its diversity and equality of opportunity for all people, regardless of gender, race, creed, national origin, or sexual identity. Whereas the town of Brighton was a leader among municipalities in granting benefits to domestic partners of town employees and advocated for marriage rights in New York prior to the time marriage equality became the law in New York State. Whereas the town of Brighton has for many years adopted resolutions calling on the New York State Legislature to enact GENDA, the Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, and we reiterate that call. Whereas when New York State failed to enact GENDA, the town board of the town of Brighton took such action on its own, making discrimination against transgender individuals in employment, housing, accommodations, and other areas illegal in the town of Brighton. Whereas Pride Week is being observed during the week of July 9 through 16, 2017, to celebrate the advances towards equality for members of the LGBTQ community in the United States, the state of New York, and in the Rochester area. Whereas we also recognize that much work remains to be done before true equality exists for the LGBTQ community, and we therefore commit to continue to take action in Brighton and advocate for action elsewhere to advance the cause of equality for the LGBTQ community and for all Americans. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and the members of our Town Council do hereby proclaim July 9th through July 16, 2017 as Pride Week in the town of Brighton, to celebrate the diversity that makes Brighton strong and to recommit to working for equal rights for all as we uphold the simple truth that equal rights are indeed human rights. Scott, this has been signed by myself and by all of the members of the town board, and I want to present it to you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. On behalf of the LGBTQ communities of the Rochester area, I want to thank you all for this wonderful proclamation and, most importantly, for all the important work that you've done over the years that Bill has highlighted in this proclamation. But I can tell you that as one of the community leaders, I hear from our community members regularly who live in the Brighton area and are so thrilled with the services and the way you step out as a community to show your support. I was thrilled on the first day that marriage equality was legal in New York State. I was actually assigned to this building, and was here to meet citizens and to work with your registration department as people were coming in to register their for marriage applications and take part in the events of the day. And it's just very, very nice to be here. So whereas I, Scott Fearing, standing here, just want to take a moment and on behalf of the entire LGBTQ communities, thank you so much for your vigilance, your hard work, and remaining dedicated to that wonderful proposition that all of us are indeed created equal and should be treated equal. So thank you all very, very much.
I do want to note that I am standing next to the pride flag here this evening, and I think it is important that we display that as a visible symbol of our support for equal rights. So thank you for being here. Now we will begin the open forum portion of our meeting. As always, we open up at the beginning of every meeting to give the community an opportunity to ask questions, make comments, whether or not it's an item that's on the agenda this evening. During the open forum period, we will give everyone that opportunity. I would note that if you're here for one of our public hearings, actually we have one public hearing tonight on the proposed Edgewood Avenue Refuse District. If you're here for the Refuse District public hearing, I would encourage you to hold your comments until we get to that item. But I will recognize anyone that wishes to address the board during the open forum. If you would please come to the podium, state your name and address. Please direct your comments to members of the board and not to other members of the audience. Please be courteous and try to keep your comments as concise as possible. If you have written comments, feel free to submit them to Town Clerk Dan Amon. I would ask that you not discuss personnel matters during the open forum. We would have to go into executive session to discuss any personnel matters. Now, if you're at home or if you're watching us remote from some other location on cable channel 12 or on YouTube, you can also participate in the open forum portion of the meeting by calling 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call, pass your question or your comment onto the board, and if we can answer it, we'll try to. If you are deaf or if you are hearing impaired, you can call and participate in the open forum through our TDD line, 784-5205. Again, 784-5205 for the town TDD line to participate in the open forum. We look forward to hearing from you. So at this time, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the town board during our open forum? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our business agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, I believe, with the addition of an item of correspondence from Ralph Utaro, Senior Vice President at Wegmans, dated June 19th, and also an item of new business relating to the standard workday reporting provisions under state law for Judge Falk. With those changes, can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve and file the town board meeting minutes for our June 28, 2017 board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Public hearings, as I mentioned, we do have one public hearing tonight on the proposed Edgewood Avenue Refuse District. We've spoken a lot over the years about refuse districts. Refuse districts are a way that neighborhoods or streets can, in partnership with the town, contract for refuse service at a price that is far, far less than the price that is charged by waste management or other refuse haulers. Typically, those savings are approximately $150 a year when compared to the so-called rack rate, the rate that waste management will tell you if you call them up. So it's a significant savings for community members. We have a relatively small refuse district proposed, I believe 12 properties along Edgewood Avenue. But for those 12 property owners, it is a significant matter. So I will ask the town clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Supervisor, it has. We were published in the June 22nd edition of the Brighton Pittsford Post.
Hearing that notice has been given, I declare this public hearing to be open. Is there anyone that would like to address the board during the public hearing on the proposed Edgewood Avenue Refuse District? All the materials, the map, plan, and report, and the like are all in your packet. And you also have a resolution. Hearing none, then I declare this public hearing to be closed. Can I have a motion, and then there can be any discussion on the part of the board? Can I have a motion to act on the resolution that you have in your packet?
Bill,
Chris?
I move that we approve the proposed Edgewood Avenue Refuse District and that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. We now have 3 items of communication with the addition of Ralph Utaro's letter dated June 19th. We also have, and that, by the way, is concerning the proposed Whole Foods project. It was addressed to David Gehring, the regional traffic engineer of the state DOT, with a copy to myself. We also have correspondence from Ramsey Boehner in his one of the many hats Ramsey wears as secretary to the Historic Preservation Commission concerning landmark designation by the commission of a property. And also a letter from Michael Corso, consumer advocate for the State Department of Public Service. I'm not quite sure why this letter was sent to us because it relates to a rate hearing for Niagara Mohawk. But obviously Niagara Mohawk is not our provider, but there will be hearings concerning rate increases. So those are the items that we have in communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file those?
So moved.
Second.
Did Mr. Gehring answer this letter? Do you know?
I do not believe he has as of yet. I think there may have been some discussions, but I don't believe there has been a written response. This is not part of the public hearing, and it is actually in response to Mr. Gehring's letter, which was dated May 19th, to Ramsey, that was part of the record of the hearing on the supplemental draft environmental impact statement.
Ramsey, will we be able to see the answer?
Mr. Gehring has retired.
Oh. So who gets
That's
the
why I was
letter?
saying I don't think we'll be getting a response from him.
But if someone replies to it,
You
sure.
I will
Yeah,
forward the letter to you.
absolutely. Yeah. So we have a motion and a second to receive and file those items, Chris?
Regarding the landmark home, Ramsey, can you tell us a little bit about the Norrie Lambert home?
It is a home that was designed by Jim Johnson, who did the Temple Sinai, the
Really one of
Mushroom
the
House.
great local architects.
Yes, one of the great local architects. Was also built by Neil Norrie, and he was a local developer in the town of Brighton, Rochester area. And that is pretty much the reasons why we designated the property as a local landmark.
And this is with the Lamberts approval as well?
Yes. Yeah, they came to the hearing. They were supportive of it. They spoke, and they are in support of the designation.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's quite a unique property, actually. It's one of the younger properties that the Historic Preservation Commission has landmarked or designated, but it has some unique features, some Japanese architectural design to it that just is not found anywhere else. Mr. Johnson was sort of experimental in his design of the property, and just as a matter of humor, upon visiting the current owners, when he drove in the driveway as he did, I think it was a couple of months ago, and got out of his car, his first comment is, "Well, it's still standing." So he was pleased to see that his experiment had been a success, and it's quite remarkable. I'm sure that Ramsey or Mary Jo could share with you some pictures of the property, and it's
You'd like,
a
yeah.
spectacular property, one of the many jewels that we have. Certainly worth preserving.
Thanks.
And it does highlight the fact that, you know, a property doesn't have to be the oldest property in town to be
does
designated as
not.
a landmark.
That's correct.
There are 4 primary criteria, and this is truly a special property. Okay, we do have that motion, and second, we haven't voted on that, have we, Dan? If you would, if there's nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel.
Aye.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFazio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Committee reports. Chris, Community Services Committee.
Our next community service meeting will be next Wednesday, July 19 at 10 o'clock a.m. That's a slightly different time to accommodate the FASC meeting ahead of that, but it will be held in the stage conference room here at Town Hall, and we welcome the public to attend.
Thank you. Jason, Finance Administrative Services.
Yes, the Finance Administrative Services Committee met last Wednesday, actually the day after the 4th of July. Each of the items that were discussed does appear on tonight's agenda, in addition to the setting of the public hearing for the Blossom Road sewer valve and the truck for the sewer department, which will be discussed later on the agenda. Our next meeting will be meeting twice next week. First will be our regularly scheduled meeting, which will be on Wednesday, July 19th at 8:30 in the morning here in the Stage Conference Room. We'll be meeting again on Friday, July 21st, again starting at 8:30 in the morning to review the 2018 through 2020 Capital Improvement Plan, which we do every year and consider capital improvement requests from each of the departments and the budgetary impacts of those. The members of the public are invited to attend both of those meetings.
Thanks, Jason. Louise, Public Safety.
Yes, Public Safety met on July 11th, that was yesterday morning. In the networking, the Brighton Ambulance said they had 476 calls in June, 2,060 for the year to date. Their response time is under 8 minutes, which is good, and July 4th went very smoothly for them. They saw 5 people, but nothing really serious. The Brighton Fire Department has had 1,387 calls year to date. They have had delivery of their new loader and have 1 more engine on order for December. By the 1st of next year, they will have all 3 new fire trucks. The Brighton Police said all was good. There were no complaints on the 4th of July. 2 more officers will be joining the force soon, which will bring the total department to 40. DPW stated that paving will be underway in September, and they will continue to have brush pickup for the rest of this month. I'm not sure how long it will go, probably through the summer. Old business, special events. There's a music fest this weekend at Genesee Valley Park. This is a city event, so minimal aid is needed from the Brighton Police Department. However, there will be no parking on Kendrick Road during the event. The 2017 Brighton Community Homecoming Celebration will be held this year on Saturday, September 9th from 10:30 to 1:30. There will be free donuts from 10:30 to 11:30, food trucks, a DJ and music, and of course the homecoming parade. The stop signs in the Roselawn neighborhood, where a public hearing will be held on July 26th regarding this matter. This is on the streets that are Bonnie Bray and South St. Regis and Glen Ellen. Warren Avenue, the police department is looking at calming measures for that street as they feel it is still the most significant cut-through street in the town. The chief will be putting together some more data on this street and present it at the next public safety meeting. New business. The Legacy Independent Senior Living facility has been sold to Watermark Retirement Communities effective August 1st. The ambulance service for the Legacy has been with another vendor. However, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance has provided some services as needed. Brighton Volunteer Ambulance would like to become the vendor on call for the new owner and says they can do this without any increase in their budget. They are therefore presenting their qualifications to Watermark and will inform the town of the outcome. The next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be on Tuesday, August 15th at 8 in the morning, the downstairs meeting room of Town Hall. The public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Louise. Mark, can you just amplify a little bit about the music festival? Because although it is in the city, it is very, very close to the neighborhood, Helen Norman Bastion, as well as East River Road, which is where we've experienced parking issues with past events. And I know
It
you've
used to be, the Music Fest used to be held in that section of Genesee Valley Park, went away for a period of time. The last couple of years that it was there, the residents of West Brighton communicated that there was problems with parking on the side streets, Bastion, Norman. So a plan was in place to regulate on a short-term basis parking. I have issued a temporary police order restricting parking on East Avenue or East River Road and all the side streets that abut Genesee Valley Park. They will be marked tomorrow night with the temporary order, and then starting Friday and Saturday during the event, we'll have staff on hand that the promoter for the event will be reimbursing the town for. We will be enforcing no parking and taking measures to make sure that there are no situations that arise. We have had great communication with the organizers, the security staff. They've got a great plan in place, and I'm fully confident that it'll have minimal impact. And I'm appreciative that they took into account the concerns of the residents of West Brighton regarding the event.
I know you've had a couple meetings. I had a meeting with, or a long telephone conversation with one of the organizers of the event. And I think differently from past years when the event was there, the music is scheduled to end fairly early, both evenings.
Right. There's a hard stop from the county as to when everyone has to be out of the park. They're taking into account the impact. They have changed the configuration and the facing of the stages. So at one point in time, they were facing the residents. That will not be the case this time. My understanding is 9 o'clock is the hard stop, and there's a little bit of flexibility built in, but they do not anticipate going real late.
And we hope and expect that most patrons will arrive either by the shuttle buses or walking into the
Friday,
site.
there's limited parking. The University of Rochester has made available parking on Saturday, which should help people get closer to the event with their vehicles. But for Friday's event, shuttle service from MCC, there's a continual loop, and it's on the promoter's website. But they did take into account impact to traffic, and like I say, it is ultimately a city event, but they did work cooperatively with us.
Great. Thank you. And thanks, Louise. Public Works, Jim.
Public Works Committee met yesterday morning. It's a busy week for all the committees. And in that time, we discussed the matter of a request from resident Jim Weller from over in Kirk Astor, asking for a review of the condition of a tree possibly located in the town right away, and also various pavement and curb concerns. And this is all being looked into by the Public Works staff, and we'll follow up accordingly with regard to that, to the neighbors and to Jim. Diane Burdette came in and also asked that we look closely at the appearance especially along Monroe Avenue on the north side, especially between 12 Corners and further down towards Allen's Creek. We will be doing that. These concerns were also forwarded to Public Works staff, but this will be also part of the discussion at the Community Services Committee next week. And then also Jim Strauss, who is a resident of the Susquehanna area, attended the meeting, and he was representing the Susquehanna Drainage District and requested an update on the status of the construction project. And our town staff will be developing a timeline for construction and updating the residents in the Susquehanna Drainage District area, and that's also underway. Under communications, Alan Handelman, who lives over in the West Brighton area, asked that we take a look at the roadside drainage along East River Road. The reference portion of the East River Road that Alan was asking about, we did find comes under the city of Rochester, interestingly enough, for maintenance jurisdiction. So we're reaching out to Jim McIntosh, who's the city of Rochester's engineer, to discuss this matter at a meeting on site, and that's to follow up in the next week or two. Under new business, we had a review of the layout of the farmers market over at the Westfall area in Buckland Park. The layout is based on a concept plan established as part of the farmers market project. And the next step is to really begin the seeker process, Bill, which will be forthcoming. And then last but not least was a discussion again on roadside drainage issues identified by residents along David Avenue and Shoreham Drive. And the town staff and Public Works will be investigating and checking into the drainage issues that we've highlighted for their review. The next committee meeting will be Tuesday, August 1st at 9 o'clock in the morning at the lower level community meeting room just below us here.
Thanks, Jim. Sorry.
That's open to the public, as all of our committees are.
I was trying to interrupt you because I realized I was remiss, and I forgot to give the emergency announcement, and we don't want anything to go wrong. So if there is an emergency in the building, you will hear the town hall emergency alarm system activated. If you hear that, please leave the building immediately, either through the door to my right, marked with the exit sign. If you go out that door, turn right, go down the stairs and out the rear door of Town Hall and away from the building. If you go out the two double doors at the back of this room, walk through the lobby, walk through the main front doors of Town Hall, out of the building, down the steps, and away from the building. Okay. We have no old business, new business. Jason, reading and approval of the claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier this evening, I reviewed claims totaling $254,430.84. Notable claims include to Civics Plus in the amount of $1,123.63, representing online recreation program registration processing fees. And actually, that shows the volume of fees that were collected in the months of May and June. That's the fee based on a little over $112,000 of program fees that were collected first. It shows the level of participation. Next was to Kenyon Pipeline Inspection in the amount of $20,128.20 for sanitary sewer pipelining on several towns, along several town streets, part of our routine maintenance program to keep that aging infrastructure upgraded and in good working order. Also to the New York State Comptroller in the amount of $50,440, representing the state and county portion of fines and fees collected in Brighton Justice Court. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jim, next matter.
All right, the next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute a modification to the grant agreement with the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This matter relates to our continued and soon-to-be completed comp plan update process. We were sort of a guinea pig on this program, the Cleaner Greener Community Program, so it took some time to, frankly, for a NYSERDA to review all the work that we were doing. We are moving much closer to the finish line of this project, and I am pleased that it was supported with the grant funding, and also pleased that it does reflect sustainability, because that is a core value. That's the reason we have this. But the proposal is to extend the time period to June 30, 2018.
Yes, and that is to allow additional public hearings
Right.
and public outreach opportunities as we prepare the draft and final plan. Beyond what the scope of the contract is, we want to do a little extra outreach.
We expect it'll be before that, but that's
Yes.
An outside date. So
And how much is that?
thank you. It's not a financial. It's just
The grant, the original grant's for $150,000.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
And that's not changing. It's really extending the grant date out
Or just the
so
date?
we can
Yeah.
do additional public outreach.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions on that matter? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks approval of a 2017 budget transfer of $3,985 from the Department of Public Works Engineering Fees account to the part-time wages in the FICA budget accounts to support additional work required for review of existing and future building permit submissions. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
As is often the case, particularly when you get into this time of year, with construction season, we get a lot of requests for building permits. There is an approval process, and this time of year, A, we get behind, B, we don't like to get behind.
That's right.
So we want to devote some additional staff time to that. So we are making this transfer. I will say, we have made this transfer before, and Ramsey has discussed with me, and I think we may hear more from Ramsey as we go through the budget process, as to whether, rather than, we've had a few years of experience recognizing this need, that going forward, without increasing the budget, we might anticipate the need for this money in advance.
And because right now, the money is in our 400 accounts, our operation accounts, for the same purpose. If we do it in-house, we get more hours out of it, we can do it more efficiently. So my thought is to transfer this money into part-time wages so we can increase staff's hours so that they can increase the ability to review the plans more efficiently.
And we get more hours, but we also get more, someone that knows the lay of the land.
Knows our regs, knows our code. I believe we probably have done this 6 years in a row.
And
So at this point, it's not an increase in my budget, it would just be having the monies in a different line item, so I don't have to come here every year.
good. All right. Thank you, Ramsey. We have that motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Chris?
Next item, Bill, is to adopt, for approval of adoption of new wage rates for seasonal town employees reflecting the increase in the New York State minimum wage, which is effective, or will be effective, December 31, 2017. I move that we adopt the resolution before us as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
As you probably recall, a couple of years ago, New York made the decision, the state of New York, to raise the minimum wage for New York. New York has a higher state minimum wage than the federal minimum wage, and that for upstate New York, that minimum wage over a period of time would go to $12.50 in basically 70-cent increments. So this year, well, as of December 31st, 2017, the minimum wage will go from $9.70 an hour to $10.40 an hour. The town of Brighton, for seasonal employees, has seasonal employees that start at the minimum wage. These are mostly summer part-time people, many but not all college students in parks, recreation, and the highway area. Although there are certainly some, we have a whole scale of part-time, of these seasonal wages, and what we have done over the years is maintained the connection to the minimum wage so that we don't compress those positions, and that we have, just as we do for our traditional full-time employees, that we have for these seasonal employees wage scales that reflect the different levels of skill and experience that are involved. So not only will we be raising wages, positions that are at the minimum wage, but also higher level positions to maintain the range. And that does cost us a couple $1,000s each year. It is an increase of slightly greater than 7% for minimum wage people, somewhat less than that as you go up the scale.
But
Louise,
it's not costing us that now. I mean, are you
As
taking
of
money?
December
Are you
31st.
taking money out of this budget to
No.
make sure it's there for next?
No. These wages will be reflected in the 2018 budget, though. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeBonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is for approval to accept cash and in-kind service donations from various sponsors for the 2017 Clean Sweep Program. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And we thank all of those folks. Louise, do you want to share with the community who they are?
Yes, I will. One moment, please. For the cash sponsorships, there was the Brighton Chamber of Commerce, the Brighton Fire Department, Brighton Kiwanis, Brighton Rotary, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, Canandaigua National Bank, Dollinger Associates, Donna Matthews, Micro Works, Ontario Hearing, Roselawn Neighborhood Association, Assemblyman Joseph Morelli, Senator Joseph Robach, Tri-City Apartments or Rustic Village, and Waste Management. That came to a total of $3,150. For the in-kind services, that is, instead of money, they gave us products that we needed. It was Bagel Land for 20 dozen bagels, Delta Labs, which gave us the garbage bags that we handed out, Great Harvest Bread Company gave us 4 dessert platters for the luncheon, Starbucks gave us 6 coffee cartons with for the breakfast, Tops Friendly Market gave us 10 dozen donuts, orange juice, cream cheese, and butter for the breakfast. And I think that's it. Wegmans gave us 48 subs with boxes of condiments, mini apples, and potato chips. So and that is approximately $1,078.50 worth of products. So we really, really appreciate all of your help in making this a success.
Yes, and thank you to you, Louise, for your leadership of that event. We have a motion and a second. Further comment? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeBonzio? Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is for approval to execute an amended post-employment agreement with a particular former Brighton Police Department investigator. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And Mark, if you wanted
This is
to
an
say a few words.
extension, contract that was due to expire the end of August 2017. Due to some situations beyond our control, we need a little bit more time with this, and I had briefed the board in executive session what this was about, and I'm asking for another year to utilize the services of this employee, former employee.
Thanks, Mark.
Good.
Motion and a second on the table. Any further comments? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio? Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Jim?
Next item is to approve a change of scheduled public hearing date of July 26, 2017 to August 23, 2017, to consider an amendment to the incentive zoning application previously approved for the University of Rochester South Campus Institutional Plan Development Project, their IPD. And it's requesting a delay in the next required traffic study date from the first quarter of 2017 to June of 2018. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a matter that we actually, at the last board meeting, originally set a public hearing date of July 26th. After that, actually, fortunately, before we were able to publish the legal notice, the university came back to us and said, could we please postpone that hearing to the August 23rd date that it's now set. So we discussed this matter in greater detail about the reasons that both town staff and the university felt that the traffic study data would be more relevant if it was done later based on ongoing construction in the area. And this will just change the date, move that actual public hearing back a month.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second on that. Further discussion, anyone? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks approval to accept a grant award in the amount of $10,000 from the New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services to be applied toward the purchase of one police motorcycle. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We appreciate Senator Joe Robach, who made that grant funding available to us. Mark, anything?
He did. That was, I didn't know it was coming, I guess would be the best term. And so his funding with some reappropriations of some prior funds will allow us to replace a very weathered motorcycle, 20-year motorcycle, and the original communication had a year of a motorcycle. We're able to find some existing stock of the 2017, which will give us some either further savings, as well as the number on a trade-in value came in a little bit higher. So with Senator Robach's generous grant and the funding, we're able to replace one of our two 20-year-old motorcycles. So
Great.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator Robach. Thank you, Mark. And
Mark, you might just comment about some of the new safety features on this motorcycle versus the older ones.
Now, I will go on the record and say I am not a motorcycle rider, so, but I did learn, we just recently had an officer that completed a very intensive 2-week police motorcycle operator school, and Heidi Kaiser is her name, and she did a phenomenal job. And when I attended the graduation ceremony, I had talked to the instructors of the class. These motorcycles that were originally put in service in 1997 did not have anti-lock braking, were not ergonomically designed for 8-hour shifts. So Heidi was able to complete the course utilizing a very heavy, outdated machine. The newer machines have ABS braking, they're fuel injected. So I listened to all the reasons why I would have to come to you and ask for new motorcycles, and some of them stuck, and the one that stuck the best was the operator, the safety factor for the operators. And you know, from a chief's perspective, that's paramount, and that's why I'm asking for the replacement of the motorcycles.
And you've put this off in your CIP requests for
Since
several
2012, we've been talking about it, and I'm ready for a hard pitch for next Friday. So as long as I can go before Ramsey, and he's going to change his budget, I'll ask to change my budget as well, so thank you for that.
Might mention this is an American-made motorcycle.
Harley Davidson police motorcycle, I believe they're made in Wisconsin, is that where Harley is?
Milwaukee,
Did I pass?
yes, you did.
So I should become a motorcycle operator?
I think you should.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Next, we have actually two resolutions, both relating to capital expenditures for the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District. So Jason, I will ask you to do both of those, starting with resolution number 9.
Okay. I'm just
Oh,
looking at the, it looks like, in my packet, it looks like we have one, and then the second
one.
one's for the standard workday.
The combo.
Is it, I think
If you look at the
actually,
agenda should reference two resolutions in that matter,
it
resolutions
does,
9
but I
and
think,
10.
but I think they were combined into a single one, including all of those items. You would rather not do that?
I don't know that that's the case. That's not in my packet. I still have them as two separate resolutions.
You must not have gotten the updated, I think there is a revised, well, let me look here.
There's only one.
There are only, well, let's see, because we've got,
Oh, wait a second.
Do you have a resolution 9 and a resolution 10?
Yes.
I,
Wait a second, here we go.
Yeah.
Yes, here it is, here it is,
yeah,
okay.
there are two. One is relating to the truck, one is relating to.
The second one
That's
relates to a
right.
dump truck. The first one relates to
First
some
one
sewer
is
improvements.
a major
Okay.
sewer system improvement to
And
be
both of them-
located at
And both
Blossom
of them are
Road.
setting public hearings, okay.
Correct.
So, so the next matter is to set the public hearing for August 9th, 2017, to consider proposed capital expenditures for improvements within the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District and the financing for such improvements, namely replacement of the sanitary sewer control valve on Blossom Road. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this is something we have discussed. It was approved in last year's budget and last year's capital improvement plan. And we anticipate we don't have final cost numbers yet, but right now we're cautiously optimistic that it may come in a little less than where we had originally anticipated it. But it's still a significant expenditure, which why we're going to be issuing a bond for that. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner? Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. And next.
Next one. The next
Ken.
matter is to set the public hearing for August 9th, 2017, to consider proposed capital expenditures for improvements within the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District and the financing for such improvements, namely for the purchase of a new and unused 2018 or newer Mack Granite heavy-duty dump truck. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And again, this item was anticipated through our capital improvement plan and our budget.
Which truck is this going to be taking the place of?
So I couldn't,
Which truck is this taking the place of?
it is taking place of a 2000 Sterling 10-wheel dump truck, which has 78,000 miles and an average repair cost of $3,400. The Sterling trucks are no longer made and parts are becoming scarce and expensive.
Is this the white truck? It's not the white truck.
You're asking the wrong guy,
I
unfortunately.
keep
I'm
seeing
not-
that one going down the street.
I don't think it's white, but I
Don't-
couldn't.
This is a
confirm.
dump truck.
Yeah.
It's a dump truck.
I'm not sure. We've been replacing, we had a couple of Sterling trucks that, as Ramsey said, are no longer being made. Parts have been increasingly difficult to find. We have pushed it out a couple of years, but we did support it and anticipate this expenditure in this year's budget. Okay, we have that motion and second. I'm sorry, Jason made the motion. Jim, did
I
you
did.
second that as well? Thank you.
Did.
Further commentary? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner? Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, we do have
Oh,
the...
Supervisor. Now we've,
Oh,
now the
we
work
got to
day.
add the, yep, we got to add the standard workday resolution. Thank you. Chris?
Next item is to adopt a standard workday and reporting provisions for newly elected and appointed officials used for retirement benefit calculations effective January 1, 2017. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
Again, this is a matter required by the state for the first time a few years ago, and Judge Falk was the only elected official newly elected in last year's election cycle. So he has elected to submit this new filing of his activities and workday reflected therein for purposes of the retirement system for the first several months of this current year. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on that? We all have done similar resolutions at appropriate times with respect to our own work days. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzo?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Now, the expense and revenue report for the month ending June 30th, and as always, at the end of each quarter, Suzanne will give us a little overview. Suzanne?
Okay, thank you. So our adopted operating budget for 2017 totaled $24,634,970, which was supported by the tax levy of $14,725,165. We appropriated fund balance of $1,180,000, and then the balance came from other revenue sources of about $8.7 million. Of those other revenue sources, about 50% relates to sales tax and mortgage tax, our two largest revenue sources outside of the tax levy. For 2017, we estimated $3,475,220 in sales tax and $885,000 in mortgage tax. We received our first quarterly sales tax check in the month of May. It totaled $884,826, which was about a 12.2% increase from a year ago, the same quarter, which was nice. And it also was our highest first quarter on record, sales tax. And that amount represented 25.5% of our budget estimate for the year. And typically, our last two-quarter sales tax payments are a little bit higher than earlier in the year, so we anticipate meeting our budget revenue for sales tax in 2017. Our semi-annual mortgage tax payment came in June in the amount of $450,825. It was about 5.8% higher than the same period a year ago and represents about 51% of our estimated budget. And again, with the mortgage tax, our second payment typically is a little bit higher because it includes the spring, summer months of the home buying and refinancing season. Our remaining $4.3 million in revenue sources are made up of departmental incomes, fees, and that type of thing, intergovernmental charges, state aid, pilots, and interest income. Through the first half of the year, we recorded $2,440,000 in revenue, about 56% of that budgeted estimate amount. With regards to our expenditures, the town's operating expenditures are just over $24 million. $18,526,000, or 75% of it, relates to employee wages and benefits. We're always stay on track with our wages, our full-time, our part-time wages, because we don't authorize positions beyond what we're budgeted for without doing any type of a budget amendment for that. So it's the overtime that fluctuates. Haven't had any snow in a couple months, so that's good, but in our overtime though, overall, right now, we're at 48% usage of our overtime budget of $397,660. Employee benefits are $6.2 million of the budget, and 49% of that relates to medical and dental benefits for our active and retired employees. We've paid 7 of our 12 monthly payments for those premiums, and we've spent out 58% of that budget. So we're right on track with that expenditure. Another $2 million is for the state retirement system, just over $2 million. We've only paid the first quarter of the year so far, which was $485,900, or 24% of that budgeted amount. We'll get our bill for the remaining 9 months of the year in November, and we'll pay it in December. So of the $6.1 million in remaining appropriations, including some budget amendments that bumps it up a little bit, we've spent out 67% of the budget, and I'll kind of go over that a little bit here. We've spent 71% of our supplies and contractuals budget. That equates to $2.8 million, and as I always say, this is not only what we've spent out, but it's also funds that we've set aside, or the term encumbered, for future expenditures through the year. Typically, if we have a contract or we know we're going to buy a certain amount of supplies for the year, we'll encumber that at the beginning of the year for the full calendar year. We've spent out 65%, or $250,000 worth of our $373,000 budget for insurance, our commercial insurance. We've spent 46% of our capital budget. We had a $682,000 capital budget, and we've spent $316,000 so far. And we've spent 42% of our utility budget. We've only had invoices through the month of May, so we're on track, but actually doing a little bit better than budgeted for our utilities. And our debt service payments will total $889,970 this year, and those are exactly on track. So I'm really pleased with our major revenue sources, how they've come in so far this year, and don't anticipate any issues with meeting our projections, and our expenditures look right on track, so everything's going good.
Thank you, Suzanne. Can I have a motion to receive and file Suzanne's report for the quarter?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion or questions? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye. Other matters of the supervisor. I just really briefly, again, want to note, we've seen reminders both in New York City and upstate of the risks that law enforcement officers take for us every time they put on their uniform. And so I want to acknowledge and mourn those deaths of law enforcement that we've seen both in New York City and in the Watertown area in this past week. Those are, I use the word tragedies, but they truly go beyond that. These are people with families and people who have committed their entire life to protecting and serving. And so we do mourn with law enforcement and people everywhere, these terrible tragedies. We mentioned Finance Committee and upcoming meetings. We are in the budget development process right now. We are following pretty much our normal cycle on that. Our Budget Review Task Force has met now twice. Second meeting was today, considering the capital improvement requests by each of the departments, not only for this year, but for the next 2 years. As we always do, we adopt a rolling 3-year capital improvement plan that we will be discussing in the Finance Committee for the first time a week from Friday. and I believe anticipating taking final action on at the next regular Finance Committee meeting after that. Then, of course, once we have reviewed it at the committee level, the full town board will act on the capital improvement plan, and we will take the 2018 component of that and, at least initially, incorporate that into our full 2018 budget, although, as always, as we review the budget, just because an item is in the capital improvement plan doesn't necessarily mean it will be in the budget for next year. But it's fair to say, I gave a report earlier, we do face very real challenges with a tax base that has actually slightly been reduced last year. I think that's a one-time phenomenon, although the actual level of the tax base will also be affected going forward in 2 years as we complete our reval process. But it is very important for us to continue providing the services that the community expects and has grown to love, and at the same time maintain fiscal responsibility, our AA2 credit rating from Moody's, and all of the other indicia of a strong financial position. To do those things, it is necessary going through the budget process and our other processes of making tough decisions, making tough choices, balancing different needs and plans. So one thing you can be assured of is that that is something we will do publicly. Those Finance Committee meetings are public meetings. The budget workshops that we will hold in August before our 2 August regular town board meetings, which we will hold at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on August 9th and August 23rd, where the departments present their budgets. Those are open meetings. Those are not workshops that are required by law. State law requires a town board to simply hold one budget hearing. But we believe that the budget process, reports like the one Suzanne just gave, an update on our financial condition, those are really critical parts of what we do as a board. And I'm always pleased when Suzanne has good news to report, but it's really important that the community know how closely, A, we are monitoring our ongoing operations, but B, that when we develop the budget, we do it with community input and input from everybody at this table and from our departments. So those workshops will be in August. A formal budget will be presented to the board in late September. And we will hold 2, not just 1, 2 budget hearings at the 2 October meetings, again, along with Finance Committee meetings, where we will be reviewing the budget. So between committee meetings and board meetings, the level of transparency and opportunity for public engagement is second to none, and it is the most important thing we do. Because everything that we do, all of the services we provide, all of the decisions that we make in terms of hiring, in terms of project approvals and the like, they are dependent to a greater or lesser extent to the decisions that we make in the budget. So we share that process with all of you. Speaking of sharing, today was also the second meeting of the Monroe County Shared Services Plan Committee. In the New York State 2018 budget, Governor Cuomo directed, after a lot of discussion, that every county outside New York City engage in a shared services planning process with all of the cities, villages, and towns, in other words, mayors and town supervisors of all those jurisdictions within the county, optionally with school districts. And in Monroe County, the school districts have participated. School district superintendents and in some cases finance directors have participated. And we held the second meeting today. Now, sharing services is nothing new in Monroe County. We've talked about it a lot. Whether it's snowplow and other highway maintenance agreements with both the state and the county for the state and county highways, not only in Brighton, but in every town. Whether it is consortia that have held down the cost of electric and gas utilities, health insurance, workers' compensation. These are all shared services that have saved money. In reality, what we do with those refuse districts that I talked about is really a partnership. It's a public-private partnership with, in this case, Waste Management, but whoever the bidder is. But it really is also the efforts of the town and those refuse districts, which we calculated is saving our residents about $600,000 a year for those that are in refuse districts. So there's a lot going on already, but frankly, this is a process that helps us identify additional opportunities. It helps us memorialize some of the things that we're already doing informally, just to make sure that we continue doing them. You know, for example, what you saw in Arundecoit, when they lost so much of their equipment in their highway department fire, and communities, including Brighton, stepped up and offered equipment to them. Some of those are sort of informal agreements, but it's something that we do, and it's something that we're all going to continue to do, but it has also generated dialogue countywide, seeing things that other communities are doing that might work here, but also town by town, and conversations that I've had with supervisors of our adjoining communities, particularly Penfield and Pittsford. In Pittsford, we have shared service agreements now, and also with the city of Rochester, where we have some very important formal agreements for fire protection services, as well as some informal agreements that we, again, may wish to try to find a way to memorialize. But those are all ways that we can try to impact the tax rate, because as I was saying, in the budget process, trying to maintain services when we face a stable, at best, property tax base, anything we can do to do more for less is something we should explore and will continue to explore. We've had discussions about community choice aggregation, which is a way that the town can make it possible for all of you to save money on your electric utility bills and do so in a way that will be more sustainable. So there's a lot on the table, but the process is we all, supervisors, mayors, will be submitting our ideas to this panel prior to August 1st. Not later than August 1st, the county must submit a plan to the Monroe County Legislature, which will include the plans that each municipality has considered. Between August 1st and September 15th, the county is required to hold 3 public hearings. What I anticipate is that there will be a hearing held on the east side of the county, one on the west side of the county, and one in the city of Rochester, but those dates and locations have not yet been set to get feedback from the community. Also, before September 15th, but following those public hearings, the plan as initially submitted can be modified, but ultimately the panel of supervisors and mayors will have to vote on that plan. Now, if there are elements of that plan that the town of Brighton feels are not in Brighton's best interest, we have the ability to opt out of that portion of the plan. So that's a positive, that things that may on their face save money, but really aren't consistent with our community values or goals, we can say, you know what, this is not something we want to do in Brighton. That's not something we would do lightly, but it's indicative that we will give these plans close review. If the plan is approved by the panel, it will then be presented to the public not later than October 15th, And interestingly enough, and maybe the best part of the whole law, is that it requires that that presentation to the public be made in easily understood language. It seems like an oxymoron, budget and shared services items be presented in clear and easily understandable language, but that is the goal of this process. So we will continue to keep you updated, probably at pretty much every meeting as we go through this plan. We would have the opportunity to not do it in 2017 and instead do it in 2018, but it was certainly the consensus of all that we should get on this. I would note that in some respects, this is not dissimilar to a process that we went through just a couple of years ago, again at the direction of the governor as part of the tax freeze to identify shared services. Some of those have been implemented. Many have not been able to be for one reason or another. In some cases, some of the things that are addressed need other action, maybe action by other bodies or referenda or even litigation. So, but again, some of those things that appeared then will again appear in the hopes that they can be implemented, whether it's by us or by other communities. So we'll be continuing to talk about that as we go along.
But have you ever discussed or come to any conclusions about things that we're doing with our neighbors that we feel we're already doing, but we're getting penalized for it?
We're getting, you're right, Louise, we have sort of gotten penalized, and that brings me to an important part of what theoretically is in this plan. Because Brighton and because Monroe County in general, in a lot of ways, was ahead of other communities, we weren't allowed to take credit for things we had already done. We weren't allowed to take credit for the fact that we plow state and county highways. We aren't allowed to take credit for the fact that we save, money, as we've talked about here. $600,000 in refuse districts, what it does is hurts us for a tax cap calculation. There is, in theory, as part of this process, a match that the state can look at new programs that are being proposed, and if the legislature appropriates money, matching incentives can be provided to local municipalities. That's the good news. The reason I say it's theoretical is that to date, the legislature has not appropriated any money. No money was appropriated in the 2017-18 budget development process by the state. And it's not even entirely clear what the standards will be by which the state would even decide. There are some criteria set forth, but there's a lot of gray in terms of exactly what might qualify for such a match if one were created. So we have not assumed, I'm certainly not going to recommend that the board assume any matching funds as we develop our 2018 budget. I'm not holding my breath on that. But it is an opportunity. There's nothing that says we can't put into the plan, even though we're not expecting matching for it, the work that we're already doing in collaboration with other jurisdictions, and we'll do that.
Have to put in there when you began it.
Yes, actually, well, you don't have to, but I would anticipate, some of these things have been going on so long, I'm not sure we even know. And some of them, by the way, interestingly, this, how many angels can dance on this particular pin? Programs like the snow plowing, as we discuss every year, the formula changes. There's a complicated formula to a certain extent. It's based on lane miles, and the numbers can change. Technically, because it changes each year, it is considered to be a new program. But I'm really not anticipating that any of those things will be eligible for state funding. So it's a complicated process. I don't think, again, I think it's a good exercise, and it has promoted conversation. Lou Alemo was there from the Brighton Central School District today, and on our way out, Lou and I had some discussions about, as we have in the past, some things that the school district and the town can do together. Supervisor LaFountain and I had some conversations today. Supervisor LaFountain from Penfield, Supervisor Smith from Pittsford and I have had some extensive discussions, and we already have some shared services with them. So anything that gets, not that we haven't been thinking about shared services and saving money all along, but, you know, institutionalizing it, this process is not a bad thing. Just one other thing I want to note. We held the first Tuesday summer concert series this past Tuesday night with the Brighton Symphony Orchestra. For the first time, I think in the years that I've been supervisor, that concert did not get rained indoors, and it was lovely hearing the Brighton Symphony play out in Buckland Park. This coming Tuesday night, one of my favorite groups that we've had as part of this show, Noble Vibes, a reggae band, several of whose members live here in Brighton. And Noble Vibes draws a great crowd whenever they play, playing some of their own music as well as some reggae standards. Next Tuesday in Buckland Park at 6:30 p.m. And that's all I have. Matters of the attorney to the town.
Nothing, thank you.
Matters of the clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Matters of members of the board.
Nothing for me.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll. I know we got ahead of you there. That was quick.
I wasn't expecting it that fast. I'm sorry, Jim and Louise, was that?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Our next board meeting will be July 26th. In the meantime, as I've mentioned, we have a number of committee meetings, particularly finance committee meetings, and hope to see you on July 26th. Have a great evening, everybody.